Harrison Price for Thursday, May 1st, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center, and this program, a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. Big program planned for you today on this glorious first day of May in the city of Vancouver. I mean, this is an absolute stunner.
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
This is the first no doubt shorts weather day of the year.
I'm not wearing shorts.
I contemplated shorts for the golf course today. We'll get there.
Our studio's too damn cold. You can't wear shorts.
Our studio is very cold. Very, very cold. I'm just glad to see you're not in your puffy coat.
I wish I was.
Mike, do you know the legend of the puffy coat?
I don't know the story.
So in the old studio, there was a vent right over one of the broadcast positions where Blake sat daily, and it would get so cold in that corner that in the dead of summer, Blake would be wearing his puffy coat. And for a while there, the show was on TV, on TSN nationally, and then there was always like video clips, and people are always like, why is Sakaris in a golf shirt and Blake is in a puffy coat?
July 20th, and I'd be walking to work with shorts and a T-shirt on, but holding a puffy coat that I would wear instead.
And he's big on puffy coats. You know, those down jackets. He's got a lot of them.
Spend a lot of time outside in the winter, yeah. It's what I do.
The Surrey Mitsubishi poll question today. We're asking you, now that Rick Tocchet is gone, should the Canucks keep Elias Pettersson? Yes or no? You can vote at the Sakaris and Price X and YouTube channels. Here's where we're coming from. As you may know, Tocchet and Pettersson didn't necessarily see eye to eye. Pettersson coming off the dreadful season. Tocchet at one point tried to reprogram him and be more of a north-south player, and many believe that was, trying to take the creativity away from this immense talent and turn him more into the sort of forechecking player forward that Tocchet's system demanded. And, we asked the poll question a month ago, less than that. Does one of Tocchet or Pettersson have to go? Are these two just professionally
oil and water
incongruous?
Yeah.
And if you're bringing back Tocchet, do you have to move Pettersson to get more of a Tocchet-style player? Well, Tocchet's now gone.
Circumstances have forced the hand.
Right. Now, I would like to think there's nowhere to go but up for Elias, but I do leave open the slight possibility that it gets worse from here. And, of course, that's the nightmare scenario that if you think is plausible, possible, or if you think it's probable, I think you absolutely have to move on the contract before it becomes more.
I think we saw the worst of him. I can't imagine the circumstances.
I would like to think that, and I would like to think that a new coach can get more out of them than Tocchet.
And that low bar was still way too low, given what you expect out of him and given what you're paying him. Right. But I do think that was the low bar.
Right. I voted yes on the poll. I think they should keep him. If they were bringing Tocchet back, then I would have been all for trading him. But I do think a new coach can get more out of Pettersson. If not work wonders, we shall see. I'm still not convinced that Jim Rutherford believes him a championship centerpiece. I still completely believe Patrick Alvin when he says he's keeping all his options open, and so I do think the Vancouver Canucks will listen. However, let me just put this bee in your bonnet. Not that you wear bonnets, you wear puffy coats, but
my bonnet.
They've lost JT Miller. Rick Tocchet has said thanks, but no thanks. And there are now worries about losing Quinn Hughes. would Francesco allow an Elias Pettersson trade this summer, particularly if it isn't bringing in a marquee name and it's more of a quantity for quality deal?
Well, you've put another stipulation on that. I think in theory, yes, he would allow it. I don't think it would be a uniform no. I think if he saw, Philip Hedl-like returns on Elias Pettersson, he might balk at that, yes. Especially considering there doesn't seem to be a strong free agent class, particularly down the middle. Now, that could change if the Leafs bow out in the first round.
You think Berube could be one and done there?
No. I mean, strong free agent class, I said.
Oh, yeah.
So Marner becomes a question mark for me if the Leafs bow out, but he's not a center still.
No.
So
Tavares too, right?
yeah. I don't know that I would uniformly say that Francesco would block any Elias Pettersson trades, but I think there's probably a minimum return.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering where he was when Carolina called there a year ago at the deadline. We know Francesco has blocked trades in the past. We know in some occasions it's because he's got a close personal relationship with the player and just can't
But I don't think that's
stand
the
to
case
see
with
his buddy
Pettersson.
leave, let alone a draw at Rogers Arena or a fan favorite. I don't know about that. But I do think, and frankly, I think it'd be appropriate if ownership asked a couple of questions here of its managers, particularly given the way the franchise is going right now. Number one, can we get ahead on an Elias Pettersson trade, even if it isn't marquee names coming back? Can we honestly get a dollar-for-dollar trade on Elias? And if Rutherford and Alvin believe they can, then I think you can't stand in the way if you're ownership. I mean, you've charged them to do this job. And if you do think, and if you are going to squash that trade with your authority, then I think it's a bigger matter than that, because at that point, the management group has lost your confidence, and I think you have to be looking at changes there. I think the other question that ownership should ask management, and perhaps it already has, is that JT Miller is gone, Rick Tocchet is gone, we're worried about Quinn Hughes leaving. Is Elias the fulcrum there? Is he the reason why all this is happening?
I mean, yeah, in some, you can bring it again back to the dispute with JT Miller. So if he's, if he's somebody different, he's Steve Johnston and doesn't have the personality necessarily of Elias Pettersson, but has the skill, are we in the predicament that we're in right now? Probably not. His contract alone becomes a part of the reason, large part of the reason why they made the decision to move Miller and not Elias Pettersson. Yeah, I mean, whether it's his fault is different than the reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
but,
I can hear you there.
But I think I think he is the reason.
Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case and management answers affirmatively, then I think if I'm ownership, and if I'm Jim Rutherford, I have to think to myself, okay, we've enabled this on the Miller trade, and sat there and watched it be the reason or a reason why the coach we wanted isn't back. So how much more of this is there to stand? Who else can't Elias work with, or who doesn't want to work with Elias? Because if that's the case, then that's your problem, and there's your answer. You're out there trading him one way or the other this summer.
There is no obvious win here for the Vancouver Canucks in any one direction. It's all a bunch of dice rolls.
Isn't that so, Canuck? There is no obvious win here.
A lot of hope now.
There is very few paths to victory. They're going to have to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Going to need a big summer.
Hell of a strategy.
Yeah.
Hell of a strategy.
Well, look, when you're year to year, like the Florida Panthers won another series last night. Barkov and Ekblad as top 5 picks. Were bad for a long period of time. Colorado, Makar, McKinnon as top 5 picks. Went through some thin years, needless to say. The Tampa Bay Lightning, Stamkos, Hedman, top 5 picks. Went through some tough years. Outside of the Vegas Golden Knights, most of your Stanley Cup champions in the last decade plus, maybe even going back to the salary cap, beginnings of the salary cap, have been teams that have gone through a proper rebuild, have sunk to the bottom of the NHL standings, have accumulated a number of high top 5 picks, have drafted superstar players with those picks, and then have built around them to create a contending and, in many cases, championship club. I mean, even St. Louis, he wasn't their pick, Jay Bouwmeester, but he was the 3rd overall. Pietrangelo was a top pick. So, they have done their utmost not to bottom out and put the fans in Vancouver through the true rebuild, which is going to take 3+ years. And yes, there are a lot of cautionary tales. Buffalo is certainly one. Chicago is turning into another. But there is a school of thought, and I'm seeing it more and more on social media and from Canucks fans, that for God's sakes, do the proper rebuild now. You have tried to stitch together a contender, take the shortcuts, find a different route to the status that you want to get to, and that is a perennial contender, and you have failed. We had a super chat yesterday, at which we didn't get to. It came in at the end. Our apologies. Super chat button available to you there on YouTube. Half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Canucks fan 94. If Hughes ends up getting traded or leaves the Canucks in 2 years, blow up the team, trade everyone, collect draft picks, build through the draft.
Okay, here's to what you said though. The Canucks did not consciously blow it up and go down with the studs. Mm-hmm. Granted, but as little as 2 years ago, they had Hughes, Pettersson, Besser, Demko, and Horvat.
Yep.
All of them drafted. And then a guy who kind of felt like he had been drafted because he'd been acquired as a young player in JT Miller. Whether they intended on doing so or not, they had drafted a core. Mm-hmm. They had. They were lucky. They lucked out, and they had ended up drafting a core.
No, but there's also...
Well, there's skill in drafting at any point.
Getting Pettersson... Yeah. Very few people had Pettersson going where he did.
Yeah.
They got one of the best players in that draft.
Besser in the 20s.
Besser in the Demko in the 2nd round. All of them
crazy
were superb selections by various people who deserve a lot of credit with the Vancouver
So
Canucks.
they had gotten there anyhow, and that to me that's the biggest pain for a Canuck fan is while they lucked into it, they backed into their rebuild a little bit. Mm-hmm. They were successful. They had a lot of things in the right position to be a successful team, and now through forces that were, I won't say beyond their control, for forces that were unforeseeable and non-traditional forces, they find themselves very quickly near rock bottom. And I'll address the super chat in a way here. The more I marinate on the unthinkable trade of Quinn Hughes, and it would be unthinkable. Nobody wants it.
No.
But if you arrived at the position of they just need to, here's the scary point of a Quinn Hughes trade from a new angle that I hadn't really come to terms with yet, and perhaps you already did, folks. Who's trading for him? And not because he has no value. He has immense value. But why are you mortgaging your future for a player, this summer right now I'm talking, for a player that might abandon you for his brothers? And even more so next year. Without an extension, why are you giving the Canucks what Quinn Hughes deserves to get in a trade if you have no extension for Quinn Hughes and in 12 months he leaves for his brothers?
Well,
like by becoming public,
when you
again,
say 12 months, it's
next
2
year.
more years.
No, next year.
If you're making the trade next year, that becomes quite pronounced.
But even now, why are you doing it?
It is still a concern now.
Because you can't even
But
negotiate.
2 seasons of Quinn Hughes and the full year to negotiate exclusively is absolutely
Matt,
worth something.
it's worth
But
something.
There are a lot of teams out there that think if we put Quinn Hughes on our blue line for the next 2 years, we are a Stanley Cup team. And whatever we have to give up is worth it because of that increased probability of winning the Cup.
It's basically Kawhi Leonard. You know, like the Raptors were pretty sure Kawhi Leonard was not re-signing with them.
City wasn't.
No. But the Raptors were pretty damn sure. But my point is, it's not just you reap the rewards of what Quinn Hughes is worth in the NHL. They're not. Mm-hmm. It's still going to be reduced.
No, so the best trade would be with New Jersey. And New Jersey, I think, would understand that they're in the catbird seat in terms of
in 2 years they get him for free.
Having the most 2 years and being the most likely destination where he signs. But don't tell me there wouldn't be other teams lining up to add Quinn Hughes, even if they're even if they're less certain he will be a long-term.
Yeah, again,
whatever.
Quinn Hughes still has value. He would get traded in 3 days, potential 3 hours, if he was made fully available. But it is extra too bad for the Canucks fan that even in that case, one of the top 5-7 players on the planet, they still will not get top dollar because there is an asterisk beside.
Well, and then Blake, you're into the wisdom of moving him this summer as opposed to next summer.
But even then,
you're going to get more.
The asterisk gets a little smaller, but it's still there.
I think it gets significantly smaller.
Yeah.
2 years is still a long time. Plus, you do get the exclusive negotiating window. He could fall in love with wherever they move him and want to re-sign there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi giving you $500 off a new or pre-owned vehicle. You got to mention Sekerson Price, and if you're out there on the market and you found a deal on a vehicle, bring it to Surrey Mitsubishi. They will beat it. Score more, save more value, more savings. Visit 13820 104th Avenue. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, and Foolish Winery. And I think I heard loud screaming from the North Shore last night. It was, no names, no anthem, no problem. Whitecaps destroy Lionel Messi and Miami 3-1 in Florida, advance 5-1 on the aggregate to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. Facing a team with international superstars, the Whitecaps, minus star player Ryan Gauld, give up the first goal, then come roaring back with 3 straight. American soccer journalists are ignoring them no longer. Glowing reviews for goal scorers Brian White, Sebastian Berhalter, Pedro Vite.
They're making careers here. They're making careers.
And the top team in MLS can now be the top club in North American soccer with a victory June 1st in the final. And they could even host this match at BC Place should Mexican sides Cruz Azul and Tigres play to a draw tonight.
Brian White is already in now the rotation for the U.S. men's national team. I suspect he will only continue to ascend their depth chart. Sebastian Berhalter has now put himself on the map. He is a week and a half shy of his 24th birthday, and is a meteoric rise now into prominence. And Pedro Vite just continues to insert himself into the Ecuadorian national team conversation.
And raise his transfer fee.
For whenever. And you heard Axel Schuster talk to us about this about a week and a half ago. Yes, could they get a handsome fee for him right now? They probably could. But for him, he sees the advantage of continuing to bolster that value while staying in North America through the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah, and that's a long way off in the way he's going now. I would doubt he's here that long, but with every passing minute, he is increasing his value and becoming a bigger driver of Whitecaps' success, and, of course, attracting more and more interest from global clubs. You mentioned Berhalter for the U.S. men's national team. I saw a little bit of, we had the wrong Berhalter last night. Of course, Sebastian's father, Greg, at one point was the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. Kalen Kyle, former Canadian international who now broadcasts MLS games, tweeted last night Brian White to the U.S. men's national team. She was quote tweeted by Sasha Clayston, who wrote, "You spelled Sebastian Berhalter wrong."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And on the start of the game that you talked about as well, like Yohei Takaoka.
Well, they give up an early one, and you're thinking,
but it's a terrible one too.
Here it comes.
It's a terrible
Miami
goal.
And all these stars have had enough. They're going to erase that 2-goal deficit, and they're going to win this. And the Whitecaps, it was a good, fun run. Very plucky underdog. Well done, guys.
Well, Yohei looks so shaky on that goal. Like he leans left, he cheats, and it goes right through his chest. If he didn't move, he would have had it. But seconds after that goal goes in, they storm down looking for another. Miami does. And this time, Takaoka lays out to the right, makes a beautiful save that prevents it from going 2-0. And from there, the traction begins for the Whitecaps. And, yeah, they don't look back. They don't look back. So deadly on the counter. Right through to the end. They're already up 3-1. They put in, I think it's already 3-1. Nelson comes in. Nelson goes through 3 players and narrowly misses putting another one in.
And you asked this of Berhalter. When did we have him on? Yesterday? The day before yesterday?
Tuesday.
So the calling card of the Whitecaps in MLS play is they have been on the ball. They have been pushing forward. They generate all sorts of chances and shots on goal. I mean, we've joked it's like tiki-taka football out here. The short passes, the full-on control of possession and the ball.
Yeah.
And yet, against Miami,
Both matches,
this isn't the ticket. This isn't available to them with a guy like Messi on the other side. They should be out of their comfort zone, out of their style, playing a different way than they have become accustomed under Jesper Sorensen. And it does not faze them.
No.
They're just, okay, we'll be a counterattacking team and win the game by multiple goals.
Well, the finish is just exquisite. Brian White doesn't miss.
Is it clinical?
It is clinical. Like, Brian White doesn't miss. You give him 3 opportunities, he'll score on 2 of them for sure. Like, it's... And then with Berhalter clanging goals
clinical is 66% then, apparently.
That's probably true in today's modern world.
Somebody in the soccer world who uses the term quantify clinical for me. What percentage of these chances should we be converting so that we can proudly and accurately give them the label clinical? Sorry.
No, I mean, I honestly...
Can I read these two?
I think people are speechless in some regards because they brought in new bodies. Again, we said this before. They brought in new bodies, but nobody that was selling T-shirts. No. It's a lot
Jay
of the old
Nelson
team.
Was okay. At one time, he was promising. He's
Sabi,
gone
same thing. Former national team.
Rehabilitate. Yeah.
But this is pretty much the same team.
Mm-hmm. Can I get to these 2 other tweets from American soccer? Maximiliano Bretos, one of your colleagues calling games there down in Los Angeles. I've been covering MLS clubs from almost the beginning. I have never seen a team like Vancouver Whitecaps FC. An unknown manager with no pedigree, and a squad where every player exceeding their previous best form by 2 or 3-fold. I thought that was perfectly put. Tom Bogert, the MLS insider at The Athletic, so much to love about the Vancouver Whitecaps, starting with the bravery of Jesper Sorensen. That's it. Like, this is a new coach who came in with no experience in this league and said, we're going to be on the ball, we're going to be pushing forward, we're going to try and score a lot of goals.
And because
you're sitting there looking at the roster and going, oh, that's great in theory, but like that could lead to some really ugly results against you.
How about 19-year-old Tate Johnston almost exclusively in charge of Messi?
He's played a handful of professional games. At this time last year, he was in summer school at the University of North Carolina. Now he's just marking Lionel Messi.
And he's the only guy shorter than Messi on the pitch, too. Like, Messi's got a size advantage on him.
Yeah. More from Bogert. Then there's Brian White, midfield play, all of it. But the defensive unit, anchored by Kristen Blackman, Ranko Veselinovic flying under the radar, such a strong foundation. Yep. Yeah, I mean, Sorensen could have come in here and played for points, played for draws, instituted a system that keeps them competitive match to match, and by golly, maybe you get a break here or there and win some games, and you're in it late for a playoff spot. Yeah, they're more than that. Now, the night got off on a disrespectful note, if you ask me, as Inter Miami did not see fit to play the Canadian national anthem prior to the game.
CONCACAF rules say you don't need to play anthems at all.
Only the American anthem was played before the match.
We played both up here.
A few things here. Number one, maybe you should play our anthem after the match. Lots of sporting competitions play the winner's anthem after the match.
Yeah.
To the victor go the spoils. Number two, you mentioned the CONCACAF guidelines. I find that so utterly bizarre for a federation that represents a number of countries.
Yeah.
Like, if this was a professional club league with, in a single country or two countries, okay. But flags and anthems are what you do as CONCACAF.
Yeah, this is not MLS. This is CONCACAF.
And then thirdly, Inter Miami should be prepared for a call from CONCACAF President Victor Montagliani of Vancouver. I have a feeling the anthem policy is going to change, and I have a feeling our boy Victor is going to let them know how he felt about not hearing his anthem at the stadium last night.
Maybe.
You will say our name. You will play our anthem, Miami.
The reaction, by the way, in the wake of this Vancouver win, this outpost of North Vancouver,
is
North
the village?
America.
Are they wondering where the village is again?
Here's a headline: Messi's Inter Miami project risks global embarrassment in the wake of this loss. The little village is making Inter Miami wonder, and not so much about the Messi thing. Obviously, that has paid dividends 20,000-fold. But they continue to trot out Jordi Alba and Busquets on the regular. And are those guys worth keeping around anymore? Like, are they not so much up top, as far as he doesn't have to run that much, so you can keep the elder statesman striker for a little while longer. But for guys like Busquets and Jordi Alba, who need to put in miles in those positions, are they just too damn slow and old now?
Nelson made Alba look foolish.
Just
out of his boots.
Like he's standing still.
Out of his boots.
Yeah.
Jordi Alba. Were you drinking Yellow Dog when you were watching and screaming at the television?
I was indeed.
His wife heard him from 2 rooms over, doors shut, headphones on.
My daughter was like, "Dad, stop." And then sat down next to me and watched.
True, because Blake is not the most expressive or emotional guy. I have heard you very rarely sort of burst out.
No, Canada
We've known each other a long, long time, and Canada soccer
anything,
Canada anything, but particularly Canada soccer is probably the most demonstrative I've ever seen you watching a game, and God knows we've watched a lot of games together.
I hope everybody gets this nervous around this team because as per our previous conversation on the Canucks, folks, there's not been a lot of things to celebrate, like championships to celebrate here.
This is a team worth celebrating.
Yellow Dog Play Dead IPA 4-packs on special for the month of May. We're into the month of May. Uno de Mayo. Look for it on sale at private and government liquor stores.
So they're nine, unbeaten in 9, the Whitecaps are. And they have but 2 defeats in 17 matches across all competitions this season.
And strangely,
it's extraordinary.
They left points on the board in Toronto. Toronto lost to CF Montreal last night in Can Champs.
They got done here by Chicago at home.
Yeah. Yeah, like those are points that
like they could easily be even better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to the Canucks. Jimmy Rutherford. And I when you're out of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and there are the franchises that are currently participating in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and some of those franchises are playing notable or marquee opponents. Like, for example, think of the Canadian hockey media ecosystem right now. You have the Toronto Maple Leafs playing the Ottawa Senators and looking like they're going to they've already made things very difficult for themselves after a 3-0 lead. Maybe they choke again. Ottawa, first time in the playoffs for a long, long time. Montreal bows out last night, but again, first time in the playoffs in a long, long time. You have Winnipeg as the best team in the league in a dogfight with St. Louis, and you have Edmonton coming storming back from 2-0 down in their series, in part thanks to Jim Hiller and a goaltender interference challenge with backup goaltender Calvin Pickard. And then beyond that, you have the Battle of Florida, and all the Stanley Cup is going on. Minnesota-Vegas series, terrific. Colorado-Dallas. And yet the Vancouver Canucks are worming their way in to all the attention.
Yeah. Like league-wide again.
Like Mike Sullivan, with his 2 Stanley Cup rings, parts with Pittsburgh. It's like a 2 to 3 hour story. Canadian hockey media moves on.
Yeah. Back to the playoffs.
Mike Sullivan may well be hired by the New York Rangers in the next 24, 48 hours. Oh, that's great. Mike Sullivan, that's done. Okay, back to the playoffs. Vancouver Canucks are their daily bread. Like Elliot Friedman, between the periods, it's like the Vancouver Canucks segment.
They really shouldn't be creating as much content as they are, but
no.
the league, never mind us locally, the league can't turn away.
League needs us. League not only wants us, they need us.
Spatzilli with the super chat. Do you think Aquilini interfered in dealing with Petey and Miller? Thanks for the super chat, Spatzilli.
I would be surprised if he didn't at some level try to interject into
He
that.
must have been involved in some regard.
Yes.
It's not like they wouldn't have brought this to him.
Yes. I'm going to say this playfully. Please don't anybody take this out of context. Francesco Aquilini is like the volunteer fireman who's really the arsonist. He comes rushing to save the day when there's a problem in his organization, when really it's what he has set up that has allowed it to happen to begin with. Mm-hmm. And I'm not blaming him for Petey and Miller not getting along. That was on them.
The individuals, yeah.
But he hired the guys who knew that they were a problem and chose not to act. Chose Miller over Horvat.
And couldn't police it.
Chose to re-sign Miller. Chose to re-sign Pettersson. So, yeah, I would be surprised if he didn't try at some point to interject, get them, because I don't think Francesco likes to trade marquee players. He is so about, marquee players, loves star power, both personally, being around them and for the fan base. And that second part is quite noble. You want to see great players play here. So I would be surprised if he didn't try in some way to patch this up or tell Jim and Patrick, look, I really don't want to trade one of these guys. I mean, we've got the 2 significant pieces there at center ice, and he wouldn't have been wrong in that case.
Do you think there's been an NHL incident as strong as what happened here and we just didn't know about it? It was covered up better?
Yes.
It must have. Like,
Oh,
there's no way
question.
in the history of the
question.
league.
No question.
800 players now deep.
No question.
There's no this is certainly the most wide covered internal spat, but there must have been
and
ones
it's a
before.
different media environment
Yeah.
now, right? Like, you know, if it happens way back in the 80s, well,
Who's to say?
unless the Tony Gallaghers of the world are getting that story, you're not hearing about it.
No. Or you're too scared to bring it to light too because of access and all that stuff back in the
No,
day as well.
back then though, it was a little less chilled, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, maybe.
So look, Rutherford put his bravest face on this on Tuesday and says he expects plenty of interest in the coaching job. Here's Jim.
We will we'll start to do a short list. I would expect our phones will ring on a regular basis for people that want this job, and we'll narrow it down fairly quick and then start the process from there. But up until now, we really did not talk about it.
And I think that's right. I think Jim is addressing the fact that usually when there are NHL coaching openings, you know, every AHL head coach, every NHL assistant that aspires, if they have representatives, reach out, try and get in the mix. So I also think he's right in terms of whittling down a short list sooner rather than later. I think that's wise. Not Jim's first rodeo, although for a guy who's been in the game this long, he actually hasn't made too many coaching hires.
No.
In any of his stops.
Not too many different bodies anyway.
Look, Laviolette is a confirmed candidate. Manny Malhotra is a confirmed candidate. As we told you last week, Mike Vellucci, Pittsburgh assistant, has a long history with Rutherford. I do think Jim probably is going to want somebody he knows as the head coach, knows and trusts. Thomas Drance today adds Mike Yeo to the mix, former Vancouver Canucks assistant, and they didn't want to buck up to keep Mike around on the bench. So Mike moved on, but a former head coach in Minnesota and St. Louis. That's an interesting name as well. He might be the sweet spot in terms of not having to pay scads of money because he's established, but he's not, you know, Laviolette established.
Yeah.
And look, Jim was also asked, and quite appropriately, about how difficult this is going to be on players, because in some cases you're talking about a fourth coach in a fourth season. Here's Jim.
Well, it's difficult for the guys that have been here. Of course, we made a lot of changes, so everybody hasn't been under 4 coaches. I will make the point that I only hired one of them, so they're not all my coaches. But at the same time, that's not easy. It's not easy on an organization. It's not easy for you guys. You like to know who you're dealing with over time. Not easy for the fans, not easy for the players. And so when I look at the history of the Canucks, though, there's not a lot of coaches that coached here for a long time. I know Pat Quinn did. I think maybe Vigneault did, if I remember right. But for the most part, coaches are here 2, 3, 4 years. And that's unfortunate because you like to have somebody longer term.
Well,
and that is
who cares about the fans and media? First of all, like that doesn't really matter. What matters is
Well,
it works in the
I-
room.
I-
It's a nicety, but
it's a nice to do with fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if a new guy comes in and wins, fans don't care. Fans will be on board immediately, as
Yeah.
they were with Tocchet.
And some of the reasons why the Canucks have gone through so many coaches is, again, look upwards. When management or ownership changes, typically that has effect on the people below. They had a long period of stability ownership-wise with the Griffiths family. Now, in the early days, that was somewhat out of the expansion era. There were a lot of coaches, but then they zeroed in on and got Pat Quinn, and Jim name-checked him. Then you had John McCaw, and there was a bunch of change. And then you had Aquilini, who early in their ownership, Dave Nonas hires Alain Vigneault, and then you had stability on the bench. You even had stability through a managerial change above Alain Vigneault. Since then, and in part because of the losing, you're turning over coaches. So, yeah, the Canucks over their 55-year history, more losing than winning. That typically means you're flipping over coaches, and it's harder and harder to build that continuity. Here's another question that I think we haven't talked about it yet this week, Blake. People are worried about the quality of candidate the Canucks are going to attract as a head coach. I think that's reasonable. Because of what happened this year, because of Tocchet saying no, because of what happened to Boudreau. But also, I think if you're a head coach who's got an established record and has options out there, and there are a number of teams looking for head coaches in the NHL, I think you want some clarity on Jim Rutherford's future, right? Like, if he's hiring you alongside Alvin, you're going to want to know, Jim, you're 76. Like, how long are you for this job?
Yeah.
And he was asked about that Tuesday, and here's what he said.
Yeah. Well, I don't think about it a lot, so I guess I'm not thinking about leaving town. I'm still here for the same reasons, and I don't feel comfortable with the job that I've done. Okay, we were on the right track a year ago. We got off that track this year. I take a lot of responsibility for it. It's my job. I head the hockey department. And we have a lot of work to do to get back on track. And so at this point in time, that's my focus, to see if we can do that.
And that's good to hear.
That's a great answer.
That has to give some strength to Canucks fans that he's not going to abandon ship. And I mean, some might like the abandonment, if those that think that he's doing a shitty job. I do think he's a smart guy. I do think he's got experience. I do think he can be a tool here for the Vancouver Canucks.
I agree with
Have
all
there
that.
been mistakes here? Unquestionably. I think there's been a lot that has been beyond his control, or again, I don't want to say that because it makes it sound like he had no agency. Because things are extremely difficult, like what happened this year, I don't fault him for not remedying the Miller versus Pettersson thing. But he has some responsibility. And while I will say
He bears some responsibility. I sort of have long believed that Rutherford identified Pettersson early as a guy you can't win a championship with. There's part of me that wonders whether Jim would have made that trade with Carolina last year. But I also think he empowers and listens to the people below him and their opinions. And I think he also knows they're probably going to be here longer than him, or at least that's what he's trying to set up. And that they have to make their own bed. Alvin has to make his own bed, make his own mistakes, talk at the same thing. So I thought it was a terrific answer, because I think he gave it the note. I'm not sure it's one he expected. I'm sure he expected a lot of questions about Tocchet and the vacancy, but about his own future, okay. Maybe that one's a little more out of left field. I think he gave it a considered, beat there before he answered it. I think he spoke truthfully about it, and I think it was aspirational. Haven't achieved what. Plus, it took responsibility. He took accountability. So, if honestly, he can just parrot that answer to any candidate who asks, I think, and he's in good stead.
the biggest problem, and this is sort of weird to say. So he's got all these friends in the league. He's very well respected, and yet, and Kevin Woodley tweeted something to this regard. The murmurs that are around the league right now are, what a shit show in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact, again, he has the respect of a lot of the league, if not all of it. So it's this weird paradox right now.
Well, I don't think it's weird paradox, because I
they've
think
earned
people know the shit. They've earned it, and yes, he's a party to it. But I think they also realized the Canucks were a shit show before Jim got here.
Fair.
That he is not the epicenter of the shit show.
But I'd say this. I think people, when he was hired, thought, ooh, good, that should
He'll
calm
clean up
the
the shit
waters.
show. And he did for a bit, but
For a second.
with this ownership, it's only a matter of time. Okay, Cup playoffs. Stanley Cup playoffs. Washington and Florida advanced with wins last night. That's 3 straight years now that Tampa Bay is out in the first round, twice running to their in-state rival Panthers. The rumors that Jon Cooper might be on the move. Larry Brooks out of New York, hearing rumblings he could join the Utah Hockey Club, where apparently he's friends with the owner, Ryan Smith. We may also have learned that the Utah Hockey Club will be the Utah Mammoth going forward. I really doubted that Cooper would be available. I guess he's got one more year left on his deal. Maybe he's run his course there. The room isn't listening quite as much. Boy, to live in Tampa, a tax-free state, working for a GM like Brisebois, an owner like Vinnick, like if I'm the lawyer from Prince George, I would say, be careful what you wish for here, John. There's a lot of places in the league where the grass is browner, I assure you.
Yeah, for sure.
But if he does shake free, I do think the Canucks have to move heaven and earth to see if you can bring this British Columbian back home. I have my doubts. 3 of the 4 teams are set in the Eastern semis, 5-game series, unfortunately, awaiting just the Battle of Ontario winner. Hell of a night of hockey tonight, and apparently for the 4th straight year, I don't remember this, but 4 game 6s on the same night. Leaf Senators, Vegas, Minnesota, Dallas, Colorado, Edmonton, LA, with the Sens, Wild, Avs, and Kings facing elimination. Here's the problem with 4 games on the same night, 4 game 6s on the same night. If all series end, you don't get a hockey game Saturday. You got Winnipeg and St. Louis tomorrow in Game 6, a single game on Friday. But Saturday, you need one of these series to go the distance to watch hockey on Saturday.
Surely that's not going to be the sweep.
Right. We got to get one of the 4 going, right?
I would bet
at
2.
least
I
one.
would bet 2 go.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me which ones, or are we? Do you not want to scoop your?
No. That's
Bet
fine.
365.
That's fine. I'm not going to give the odds yet anyway.
Okay.
By
By the way, no hockey Sunday either unless Jets Blues go to Game 7.
The Kings know how to beat the Oilers. They've proven it. They do know how. They've not looked great the last 3 games, all losses. So I'm going to say Kings do it.
Edmonton never makes it easy on itself.
Never makes it easy on themselves. I think the Leafs pull it out. I think the Golden Knights pull it out.
Do you? Okay, because that's the one I'm looking at.
I'll say Avs and Kings.
Okay. I think Vegas, Minnesota's going 7. The rest, I'm not as sure. Kucherov, Draisaitl, Hellebuck as your Hart Trophy finalists. Interesting. The players had 2 different names. They had McCarr and McKinnon there, as opposed to Draisaitl and Hellebuck. Kucherov was on both lists of finalists.
So again, like Cooper, is he leaving behind a perennial Hart Trophy nominee? If it's at all in his corner.
He is. Also should mention Scheifele's out of that Game 6 Winnipeg St. Louis, and there was an amusing doctor story there. Jim Montgomery, head coach of the Blues, tried to say, no, Scheifele didn't get hurt on that hit. Neil wondered where he got his medical degree. From Dr. Mark Recky's School of Medicine, of course. Come on, Scott. You've been around this league. Vancouverites, Lower Mainlanders, Macklin, Celebrini, Kent Johnston off to the Worlds for Canada. A former Canucks captain will join them. His name's Horvat. Good on Bo for playing.
Yeah.
And Macklin making this team at 18, 19,
Well, it does make you think now about the Olympics, right? Like,
I think Macklin Celebrini has an outside shot of making it.
If Macklin has as good a year next year as he had this year, if there's no step back, I think he's on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, and his plus-minus was terrible this year because it's a terrible team. He is not a bad defensive player. I know we think of young forwards who score a lot and think, when they round it, like Bedard. Yeah, Bedard has to round more into being a complete player, but Macklin Celebrini is the truth, man. So looking forward to that. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta, fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away, pregame, postgame. You're mere steps from the arena or stadium. They have the weekly drink specials, the awesome street food menu. Try the Smash Burger, the arcade that encircles the bar, 50 West Cordova. Greta, let the games begin. We'll talk to Patrick Johnston. We'll talk to Rob Williams. And then later in the program, A little more on the Abbotsford Canucks. Today's golf report brought to you by the Whistler Golf Club. All of it coming up on today's show. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. I was a big loser last night. I figured, Miami's going to win this game at home. Caps could still advance even with a loss. Wrong. Mayor of Wrongville, wrong. So what you got?
I won. I got my goal scorer prop again, Kyle Connor. I've been on fire lately. I really have been. It's the pseudo sweep if the Oilers win tonight. Right?
Yeah,
There'd be
it's four in a
straight.
row.
What are the chances the Kings succumb 4 in a row to the Oilers? Well, fine if the Oilers win the series.
I think they're
get
shook,
that.
man. I think their coach made a terrible challenge, and
But that was 3 games ago.
yeah, well,
I think they can.
and it's Pickard too, right? He is going back to Pickard.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, maybe the Pickard story has run its
plus
course.
150
Yeah.
at Bet365, which is a good number, comparatively speaking to other places.
I just want to let everyone know I'm not rooting for this, and not because I spent many years in Ottawa, mostly because I just love to watch Toronto angst manifest in all its ways. But some very wise people said before this Battle of Ontario series, if you're picking the Leafs, it's got to be 6 or less, because if it's going 7, it will be the Senators. The Leafs have crushed so many hearts in the nation's capital over the years in playoff series. I almost think it's better for them to be playing on the road tonight than at home in front of what would be a sphincter-tight crowd. So I'm taking Toronto. I'm getting value there too, Blake, at plus 100
yeah.
to win Game 6 and advance to the second round.
Delicious as it would be to see a Game 7 in that series.
So delicious. I am so rooting for the Game 7 in that series, alas. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you. Game props, player props, totals, money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champion, and much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Patrick Johnston coming up next. Harrison Price coming to you from the historic Wall Center.
I will not drink bogey juice today. Let's be real. I guess I probably will.
Mm-hmm.
We're going golfing today.
And we booked this at Northlands like 2 weeks ago, and somebody is smiling, shining on us to get a day like today.
It's a good day.
It is a day for golf.
Problem is, it's been like 3.5 weeks since I last played golf, so let's be real. I will be drinking bogey juice today. You can get it in the single servings. You can get it in the big bottle, so you can have it as a cocktail with some soda and ice.
You might as well just bring the bottle today, let's face it.
It's probably true. Somebody's going to have to pick me up. Bogeyjuice.com, SP15 to get 15% off your order. It's the tradition that everybody's talking about. Apple, ginger, delicious.
We are this close from Blake getting overserved on the golf course and one of his children needing to come and pick him up.
I'm creating new drivers, so it's...
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We got
do
a
have
couple
the
on the
ability.
horizon
Yeah.
here. His world is about to open up.
Let's face it, they're not coming to get me.
Dad, I would, but I'm going over to see a
I'm
friend.
at the mall.
Yeah. Here's Patrick Johnston. He covers the Canucks for the province and Post Media. He's juggling children today,
He's
too.
raising drivers, too.
How are you?
Farther away from it, but yes.
Also trying to sort out Whitecaps tiebreakers and all that kind of thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that is quite an exercise, quite a labyrinth to go down
perhaps
CONCACAF tiebreakers.
Travel to Monterey.
Oh,
What's
there you
what's
go.
the plan there? No.
Oh, don't talk to me. That'd be JJ. If anybody goes anywhere, it's JJ.
Yes, JJ's earned it. I mean, he's been there every step of the way with this incredible story.
Yeah.
There's another incredible story going on in the city sports scene. Perhaps you've heard.
Less rosy.
Were you at all surprised that we saw the news from Tocchet Tuesday, Peach?
Well, I believe I had said it was 60-40 that he wouldn't be back. So no, I guess I'm not surprised. In the end, it comes down to, you poke around, it comes down to what I wrote yesterday, which is that this is a deep concern about the future of Quinn Hughes. And if you are concerned about the future of Quinn Hughes, this is a big red flag, because this is a guy that liked it here. He liked this team. He liked the organization and was made a huge offer, and he still said no. So it's not good days here at all.
Is he waiting for Sheldon Keefe to walk the plank and be reunited with all the? Do they have this big conspiratorial plan to meet in New Jersey in 2 years?
Well, I think you're right in saying that it's the meetup is not obvious. Like, there are obviously the jobs that the easy ones, like, oh, will he go to Philly, so on and so on and so on. But like, what happens in Colorado? Like, if they lose to Dallas, what happens there? Like, there are jobs. I'm not saying I know that, but I'm just saying, like, that's an example of something that might come open, because they won the Stanley Cup, but they've crashed and burned in the playoffs and since then. And despite having these two elite players, I'm just saying that the point is that he has now set the table wide open for himself. Like, there are going to be opportunities that appear that we have not considered yet. And New Jersey, sure, but that seems like a long time away. I think more than likely it's quite possibly an option that we haven't even considered yet.
I would advise Rick to stay away from New Jersey. If you're familiar with his personal history, once upon a time, some associates in New Jersey got him and the Gretzky's in trouble. So,
associates.
Any chance Jon Cooper shakes free and becomes is there any world where they could lure the lawyer from Prince George, all his Stanley Cup rings and Four Nations jewelry back home?
Sure. John, you've spent a decade living in the tax-free state. You want to come back?
In the sunshine, working for the best owner in the National Hockey League, lifting cups, coaching superstars who want to be there and sign team-friendly deals. So come on down,
the
baby.
mirror opposite of that situation is here.
The thing is, you can just hang out with the family in White Rock on days that you're not buried in your business at Rogers.
Not quite the same.
Not quite the same pitch. No, not going to happen.
I mean, like, here's the question: they threw a bunch of money at Rick Tocchet. Will they throw a bunch of money at someone else? Right? Like, that's
very good question
here. So yeah,
very
I mean, it's like, if they're willing to throw money around, I'm sure there are some interesting coaches that could be convinced. I just am skeptical at this point. I don't know. It's a bad situation to be in, and I have a hard time trying to spin something positive out of this right now.
Hey, do you believe it was more than tokenism when he said Manny Malhotra is a candidate? Rutherford, that is.
I mean, the press conference in the end, I mean, credit to Rutherford for making himself available. It was a bit of a pulled together last minute thing. I mean, I think about the question that I threw at him about his own future, and it was clear he hadn't been expecting that, and he had paused to collect sort of an answer. That we discussed any candidates. I mean, it was not a surprise. Of course, he knew he would be asked about Manny. Yeah, of course Manny will be a candidate. Like, Manny's had a good year. Does that mean, he said himself, I don't think we're going to rush into this. We need to figure out who's available, but we also can't wait because they need to know for recruiting purposes. Like, they're going to have to sign guys this summer. Like, those guys need to know who their coach is going to be.
Well, and they're also in a derby here with a bunch of other teams that are looking for coaches, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Jim mentioned that, and he's 100% right.
Let me put them into two categories, like the David Carl, Vellucci, Malhotra type, or veteran, we know that guy. He's been the coach here, there, and everywhere type. You put it into two big categories. Which are you putting the money on?
Well,
Gerard Gallant, I guess. Guys.
Yeah, I mean, like, I suppose the general track record it's interesting. What's the track record here, right? We know the Tortorella story, right? That was an ownership preference. That was the big, let's make a big move, right? But the two coaches after that were lesser known names. Whether that was ownership or that was more about Jim Benning or that was Trevor Linden or some other variable, they went with two lesser known coaches, guys that had reputations as being kind of maybe the next thing, but not big names. And then obviously Bruce Boudreau was available, and Rick Tocchet was an interesting, though not necessarily like star candidate quality, but an interesting candidate these guys really like. So I have a hard time judging which way they'll go. I think they will go with a guy that it seems to me, I feel like they'll go with someone they're familiar with, given the fact that they want to do this not rush, but we can't wait kind of situation. So yeah, I mean, if Laviolette's a guy, I mean, Jim was asked about him and he didn't run away from the idea as a guy that he knows from way back when and had some success with. I don't think there's necessarily saying that he is the clubhouse leader, but certainly I think they are going to look at any and all candidates, and we'll see where they land.
If I'm Quinn Hughes, I could imagine Quinn Hughes being upset by both of the paths, by the way. I could imagine Quinn Hughes saying, really, Laviolette to come scream at us? Gerard Gallant is making stop number 10 or whatever with that. And then I could see him say, bringing in another guy going, really? We're getting a brand new green rookie here? I could see, I don't know what to think here, what Quinn Hughes would want.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question for him for sure. I mean, if you're Quinn Hughes, you're sitting back going, whoa, what do I got to do this year? What position am I in? Do I want to get ahead of this and just ask for a move now? I think the advice to him would be go out and have a huge season. Make yourself as desirable as possible and then play out, see what happens.
I mean, I'm not sure how much upside and potential he has left on desirability. I think
I get it. Yeah.
He's a 10 out of 10.
Come back, win the Norris again, and
then
you can still do that.
I'm not even sure that enhances trade value, Patrick, because you just get the 1 year. I think the trade value is never higher than right now.
You're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's for the team's consideration, right? For him, he has another hot season. That's the thing, is that he knows he's going to be the guy, right? Mm-hmm. And if by some miracle he drags Elias Pettersson back to who he's supposed to be, kudos to him,
So hear my mouth on Laviolette here and why he might be the perfect candidate for them. Familiar with Jim Rutherford, proven with a Stanley Cup ring. Remember, these guys were all talking about the rings and when they first got here. Onto a 7th team, so it's not like he could be as choosy as other quote-unquote name coaches, and has probably made a whole lot of money whereby, he's going to demand more than a Manny Malhotra or someone like that, but he's not going to demand Tocchet or top of scale type of money, so he fits financially for them too. When I put all of that together, I just wonder whether you could find ownership and managerial alignment behind Peter Laviolette. And then the question is, does Quinn Hughes actually have a say, or are they just going to sort of consult him and keep him apprised of the process?
It's hard to imagine him having an actual say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're in that.
It would be irregular for the National Hockey
think we're in, and I don't think that's not how Jim Rutherford operates, right?
No, fair.
I just don't think. I don't think that. Would you play for this guy? No, I don't think that's a question.
No, it's Quinn. What do you think of Peter Laviolette? What have you heard of Peter Laviolette from your? I would think it'd be a question like that.
Perhaps I have a hard time buying that, but perhaps you never
really.
I just I think Jim Rutherford is going to make a list of people who he thinks he knows. He'll ask Patrick Allvin, "What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy?" And then they'll start calling who they can call.
Let's square something away here. They made a fair deal for sure to Tocchet. Did they reach his number? Did they reach his number? Do you think?
I think Yeah, I the numbers that are being thrown out there, that is exactly what I've heard. I don't know if it was 5x5 or it was just short of that. It was huge. It was a huge deal. There's absolutely no doubt about it. There was no question of, in the end, ownership saw the situation and said, they put the money there, to their credit. We rarely give them credit, but they did put the money there. This was not a financial decision.
Do you think Rick coaches in the NHL next season?
Yes. I think he's yes, I do. I think he's desirable. I mean, there's more money to be made doing that than doing TV. I think he loves coaching. Like, that is the number one thing for him. As someone who spent 2.5 years talking to him almost every day during the hockey season, like, this is a guy that loves coaching. This is his passion. He's fascinated by stuff. He's intensely curious. He's 61. Like, he's still got working years left. This is what he wants to be. He has spent much of the last 20 years as a coach, and certainly is a guy who gets up and every day relishes the challenge of making himself better and making his team better.
What do you think ownership thinks of all this right now? What do you think about the departure of Tocchet in particular, but also on the broader scope of, there's a lot of noise again. My goodness.
Well,
their names are getting dragged back into it because people go to the top when the shit hits the fan.
And
we're back.
I'm going to doubt ownership is looking into the mirror and going, what was our role in contributing to all this? But nevertheless.
But we're back to the dark decade, right? Like, the Rutherford regime has delivered one playoff run, right?
Yeah. And about 1 year of quiet and solitude, right? Like, last year, for the most part, was quiet and solitude. This year was noise, nonstop.
This was back to everything, and everything we've sadly gotten used to in the last 10 years, basically. Like, it is for this year. I don't think is quote on ownership, but it's certainly. The overall trend is hard to ignore while they've been in charge, right? Like, there is that overall pattern of managers change, coaches change, chaos reigns. And we know how chaotic internally they were this year. I don't know if they could have anticipated, with the Canucks, could have anticipated the true scale of blow up that occurred between Pettersson and Miller. That set the course for the entire season, and I think we're still feeling the effects of it, right? Like, this is a team that openly knows they need to find another top six forward because they lost the guy that one of the guys they built the team around.
There are some rumors that the Aquilinis might want to sell. Do you believe that?
Listen, I've reported this before over the years. Like, they have taken calls over the years and they have not immediately hung up the phone, right? Now, the question continues to be, would they ever sell the building, right? Because the team costs money, right? Concerts do not cost much money. They make you a lot of money. And that has been consistently their biggest preference, is to put as many concerts as they can in there. And the hockey thing has become more complicated. We can see the kind of money they've started chasing and the kind of money they don't particularly concern themselves. They go for high end because I guess they've figured out that for what they're trying to chase after, the margins there are better. It's a very precarious situation. And I know that, I saw Nick Kypreos has made a report about this. It's something I'm continually kicking tires on. What is the state of affairs? I don't have anything one way or another right now. But none of that talk would surprise me, given everything I've heard over the years.
I'm sorry, Kypreos has them for sale, or?
Well, no. Someone sent it to me just before we came on air. Here.
Oh, okay.
One question. Here, I'll read it. One question starting to circulate out of Vancouver is whether or not the Aquilini family is contemplating selling part or majority of the Canucks. There's speculation that Luigi, the founder of Aquilini Investment Group, and his two sons Paolo and Roberto, who have no active roles in the hockey club, may have grown a tad tired of the constant drama surrounding the team. Canucks are run by Luigi's eldest son, Francesco, who's the chairman and governor. Market value for the hockey club, and Rogers and Reina is expected to be around $2 to $3 billion. which reads like people going, could they be happy with everything that's gone on?
But honestly, like I've heard this for years, right?
That's what I mean.
The
right?
two brothers, mainly Roberto and Luigi, sit there and look at it and go, "What the hell are we doing?"
Well, Paulo's not involved at all.
Our name gets dragged. We used to make a lot of money on this team. Now we don't make as much money because we don't win as many games and we don't sell out the building as much and sell this, that, and the other thing. So that has been ongoing. Now, the estate planning side of this is interesting because Luigi's in his early to mid-90s. And so if you don't have clear estate planning and Roberto and Paulo, if not other heirs, have any kind of slice of the Vancouver Canucks and want to be bought out, those are checks I don't think Francesco can write.
No.
You're right about the building. Now, of course, who's going to buy the team if you don't own and control the building?
Exactly.
But it is a much more complicated, difficult, and expensive purchase of team and building because you're also buying that land in downtown Vancouver, not to mention like what becomes of the residential towers that are attached to everything there.
Well, I mean, the thing, and I mean, I know we're not a property development podcast, but like
we could start one.
But Patrick dabbles in this reporting if you've heard him here before.
I mean, listen, the just by the way, for context, they made $100 million in the 2010-11 season. Now that was they played the maximum number of hockey games possible that season.
That's right. And sold them all out. Yeah.
Right. But like that's the comparison point. Like they still make money as far as we know, right?
I think
so. They don't make nearly as much money as they did then. And part of the reason why they make money is because they have kept going for lean staffing and young staffing and less costly staffing. So,
but also player costs have gotten significant since then, and
players' costs have gone up, and so but like they
to compensate, they churn out staff.
Yeah, and they were very quick to like really to hike ticket prices based on one winning season. Again, we've talked about it a million times. They don't understand goodwill. They understand leverage and leaning on people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like there's a very there's a dollar-minded, there's a finance. Someone pointed out there's a finance mindset here, which, fair enough, but it's not one that's terribly interested in sort of the people aspect of things.
Yeah. Just last question for you. Last night I had dinner with Stephen Brunt, who's in town doing some work. 40 years in the industry, all those years as a, Globe and Mail columnist and as a host on the Fan in Toronto. He and not the biggest hockey guy, like that, not his favorite sport, and he didn't make his name covering hockey.
No.
He says to me last night, I listened to these two Jim Rutherford press conferences. He says, Matt, they may be the two most extraordinary NHL press conferences I've heard in my career. And like he was asking me questions about this market and have you taken a step back and sort of taken stock of everything that has been said and unleashed? And now the noise around the
Quinn Hughes usually calls me back. He hasn't called me back.
Exactly.
I don't know what it means.
That's one of the lines he pulled out. He's like, "Are you kidding me? Like the guy is giving you a blow by blow of his day to day." Have you taken stock of just how extraordinary this latest period in Canucks history is? Because I know it's one of many chapters in Canucks history. Eddie got it right, never boring with the book. But have you taken stock?
They give us so much content, PJ, and they really shouldn't. They really shouldn't.
I had to call Eddie. I said, Eddie, you're going to have to write a whole new chapter.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
You can write a whole new book.
Yes.
On this season. Part 2.
I'm going to do that book.
Well, get busy.
Oh, Christ. Well, yes, I mean, as I wrote, I mean, it wasn't even, I went in with the question and he gave me the answer. And I said, Jim, coaches don't leave. Like they don't.
No.
It's very hard. If you go over the list, there's 3 that I could think of and basically couldn't find any others in the last, I don't know.
We were talking about this too. Larry Robinson and who else?
Peters and Babcock, like for terrible reasons, resign. And then you have Paul Maurice because he got burned out. Sorry, did you say someone else?
Larry Robinson.
Yeah, Larry Robinson.
Which was what, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Some time ago.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Paul Maurice was burned out in Winnipeg. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
but it was after a long run. But after a long run, not after 2.5 years.
Yeah, after
Whittley
a
in
long
Florida.
run. It was in many ways kind of a normal thing. You know, he's like, I've been doing this a long time. I need a break. Like, fair enough. Yeah, that alone, and then you're right. Like Jim Rutherford being honest and fully, you know, I'd say for the most part, fully truthful in his answers. And like, no, we're in a pretty stunning moment because I think he knows what we all see. Like, there's a lot to be dealt with here. You know, what they're going to do with Pettersson. Like, are they going to actually move him? I think there's a really strong chance they move him here.
Under Benning, Vancouver was that dog in the burning house meme, sipping coffee. This is fine.
It's fine.
Under this management, the dog is going, the house is burning. Like,
Well,
being honest.
Yeah.
He's not leaving, but it's, you know, it's crazy.
And as I noted last week, like, this is Jim Rutherford stepping up and saying, I'm in charge and things have gone badly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I asked him, he said, listen, I am not happy. I said, what's your future like here? And he goes, I am not happy. This is on me. This last year has not gone well. So in many ways, vowing to fix this.
Yeah.
But we'll see if he can, because there's the problems are so staggering. And they're so far off where they were a year ago.
I know you got to run. You got children to take to appointments, but I just want to pick up. You think there's now a strong chance of trading Pettersson? Because I'd be of the opinion, I think there's a better chance now that he stays. Now that the head coach he hasn't meshed with is gone.
I always thought it was there was a non-zero chance. I think it's bigger than non-zero. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think there's a strong possibility now.
Okay. Get your sunscreen on. All right. We'll catch up next week. Nice to see you.
My eye's fine now.
Thank you. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Blake is going to tell you about the wonders of the Toyota BZ4X that you can skip by the gas station because you're in the HOV lane.
I'll say that.
About all the cargo space that you have in this vehicle. You can fit the pets and the sports equipment and the family, and God knows Blake needs space in a vehicle with his brood.
Definitely will say that.
What else are you going to tell him about? The financing?
Yeah.
You're going to highlight other features?
I'll do the financing. Are you going to do that? You were doing so well there. 0.99% APR over 36 months, up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. All you have to do is take one for a test drive or fall in love. Shop Toyota.ca.
Blake's going to tell you, get to your closest Pacific Toyota dealer.
Yeah.
And just ask them, say, hey, I want to take a test drive. I've heard so much about this car on Harrison Price, so let me see what the big deal is. And then you'll get in it and you'll realize it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of big deals, a goateed Rob Williams, the national sports editor. It's quite a title. The national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports vertical, and he joins us. Is that the newsroom you're in?
That is, yeah.
Huh? Okay.
Live.
How you doing?
Live from Yaletown. Good. You know, this is an unintentional goatee because this is just me being lazy, not shaving.
Oh, okay.
Years ago, I grew a playoff beard back when before I was in media, when I was just a fan, going to the games. Grew a playoff beard when the Canucks went to the final in 2011, of course. And everyone said I had a playoff goatee because it didn't grow very well.
Oh boy.
So it was sad on the sides. Sideburns were good. The goatee was good.
What is your reaction to the events of this week, Tocchet's departure, and what Rutherford had to say Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, I am surprised that, like Jim Rutherford, I'm surprised that Tocchet's gone. I thought obviously there was a chance he'd go. I think the longer it went, when it went all week last week and there was no announcement, then I thought, ooh, it's not looking as good. But ultimately, it apparently didn't come down to money, which somehow makes it worse, right? Like somehow it's like they gave him all the money in the world and still he said no. That's how bad the situation is. That Rick Tocchet didn't want to return, and I think it's a gut punch to the organization. I think it's a gut punch to, even if you thought he wasn't a great coach, he was the coach they wanted, and he said no, right? Yeah. He just dumped you. It's a really bad look on the organization, and yet another in the long list of things where it's like, I can't believe in 1 year it went so far off the rails. Like, I think about that photo of the 6 All-Stars that they had in Toronto on the ice. Rick Tocchet was the 7th Canuck All-Star. He's gone now too.
Have you ever hated PDO so much? Like, that year was so drunk on PDO, and it created too much happiness. That's the problem. PDO's to blame here.
Well, I mean, it's health too, right? Like, they were so banged up last year. Obviously, the PD Miller thing was a major factor, but health really, really matters. And when your star players are banged up in and out of the lineup, it affects the team. And I think that was a big factor that goes into it.
So I can understand in normal circumstances around a conventional franchise how we all would be so surprised at the yearly change and decline here. But gentlemen, let's remember, I mean, Jim Benning said it best several years ago. We go day to day by this franchise. Some would say they lurch year to year, everything, all their eggs in the basket of let's just make the playoffs, right? Let's try and take shortcuts to Stanley Cup contention. When you approach it that way without a long-term plan, vision, and strategy, this is what you get, erraticism. Some years are up, some years are going to be down. You haven't quite yet cemented the success of this team that allows you to, the foundation to allow you to start, building up. Like, as property developers, they should know this. They looked like they might have that in place, and then they structured Tocchet's contract with an option because the owners didn't want to pay him not to coach. And that's what triggered this reason. Rob, the bottom line, so long as Francesco is in charge and this is the proceedings of the franchise, let's do everything we can to make the playoffs next year, should we be expecting this sort of yo-yoing from the Canucks as opposed to the typical, line graph that you would see with hockey teams that are building towards a contender?
Yeah, I wrote a story. I looked back at it. It was from January 2024, and it was basically that Rick Tocchet's due a big raise this summer, like 2024 summer. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of what I go back to, like, where they say it wasn't about money. Well, maybe it wasn't about money, but I think it was about options, right? And they let it get to this point where Tocchet had options. He doesn't need to come back to this. And my question is, why, unless they were just fooling themselves with that option here, why do you let it get to a point where you basically have a coach become a free agent? Why do you not reward him after one of the best seasons in franchise history and give him an extension? And then there's no questions about who the coach is or any of that coming down to it this season. I know it's happened maybe in a few different organizations where they've had their coach go into the last season of a contract, but to me, there just was no reason. Like, does he turn down $5 million a year on an extension if you offer that to him last summer? I think he takes that. Like, why would you not take the extension? So to me, it's maybe they probably went a little cheap on the 2-year deal plus a club option. That and the option in the end, they realized how ridiculous that option would be and how nickel and diming they'd be if they kept him to that option. So that to me, it comes down to that. Like, why didn't you sign him before the season? Why did you let it come to right now?
Well, especially when you weren't willing to exercise the option, so it's bloody useless to you. In fact,
it was ornamental.
Actually, I shouldn't say it's not useless. It
created noise.
It created. It helped spring him out of town. Like, it was a springboard to take him out of town, right? Because I think Rob's 100% right. If he's on a long-term deal, he's back. I think even if this year is guaranteed, he's back, right? Like if it was just a 3-year deal.
Oh, he's not quitting. I don't think he's walking
away.
Might
have quitted.
I doubt it.
But I would be surprised. Okay, let's ask
Rob. First off, do you think this affects ticket sales? Do you think more noise, the coach walking away, the uncertainty, and this is renewal season here? Do you think this affects what we see in the stands next year?
I think it adds to it. I think it hurts the brand, no doubt. And it's just the latest in a long line of things, right? Like this is a bad look for the team. So potentially, I think ultimately, I mean, look how poor they couldn't have broken up with Bruce Boudreau in a worse way, and Tocchet made everyone say Bruce who within about 9 months, right? Like so. If you can put a winner on the ice, like a lot will be forgiven.
It's a good point. Yep.
But yeah, right now it definitely hurts the brand. It's just another addition to all of those things that have happened over the last season that hurt the brand, and ultimately I think that's got to play a factor in ticket sales. I mean, and I haven't done any statistically relevant polling here, but. Just talking to, I feel like I've heard from more fans than ever before that are saying like, and just not just people on Twitter, but like friends of mine, they're like, yeah, I'm not renewing my season tickets this year. And like, there's a lot of people just sort of anecdotally that I've heard that are just saying I can't do it. Like it's the combination of how dysfunctional they were, how bad they were on home ice. Missing the playoffs, and on top of all that, jacking the ticket prices up for a second year in a row.
I'm always skeptical of those threatening to cancel their season tickets on social media. A, that they have season tickets, and then secondly, that they are going to cancel. And, we've talked about it in the past. Canuck season tickets are basically conspicuous consumption in a very affluent market. We all know working people who have Canuck season tickets or half seasons or what have you. If you have to account for your Canuck season tickets in rich people, listen up here, what's called a family budget, then I think you're considering canceling.
Well, especially
but if you just have more disposable income than you know what to do, and there are a lot of people in the lower bowl for whom that applies.
But even then,
I don't
Matt,
think they bat an eyelid. I think they're back in October, hoping for the best.
Even people that are like that, I think they don't like those seats to be empty. Like they want to make sure they're being, and they can be a hassle to have. Of like, we're not going tonight, but nobody wants to take. Like, you can go to any game you want, guys. There's tickets available for every game of the, save for maybe the Leafs.
But it's a status thing, Blake, for many.
Is it?
Yeah. Where we go. The Surrey Mitsubishi poll question: now that Rick Tocchet is gone, should the Canucks keep Elias Pettersson? There was a school of thought that it's got to be one instead of the other after much clashing over the last 2+ seasons. Rob, where do you stand there?
Well, I was on the team. Keep him even if Tocchet came back. So I'm definitely on that train. I do think Pettersson's going to have a big bounce back year this year. I do think also, and above this, like, look, if you could get a great trade for him, yeah, pull the trigger. Why not? Like he could probably use a change of scenery. I just don't think that the value you're going to get for him right now is going to be very good at all. I think you're trading him at an absolute rock bottom price right now, and I don't think that's the way to go. And I think that kind of lowers the potential of your team, because I think the best way, their best chance at a Stanley Cup is PD figures it out. So I'm still on board that train. I do think also the silver lining in this is, what if Tocchet was just not the right coach for Pettersson, for better or for worse? Sometimes that happens, right? Kuzmenko was a disaster under Tocchet. He was a disaster under Ryan Huska in Calgary. And he's flourished in LA. So sometimes that happens. Maybe he just wasn't the right voice to get through to PD. I think more than likely it's also just having a good summer, coming back stronger and refreshed. And I think that he's going to be better. So yeah. So for me, you hang on to PD unless you get fair market value based on what I think he can be, and I think he will go back to being a bona fide top line center next season.
Okay, this is the portion of the show where we have a debate, and Rob Williams may have to referee, as a good national sports editor might do.
Over what?
Blake Price is of the opinion that if the Whitecaps, huge winners last night in Miami, are hosting the CONCACAF Champions Cup game on June 1st at BC Place, and we'll know that tonight with the two Mexican sides, Cruz Azul and Tigres, playing this evening. You want to draw in this game. Don't ask me why, but you want to draw in this game for the Caps to get hosting duties for this game. Blake thinks they can sell out BC Place to the Messi level at 53,000.
Not in 12 minutes like they did for Messi, but over the course of the next 4 weeks, yes.
Okay, they do have a good runway to this game. I will concede that. But season ticket holders have to opt in on this game. And for me, 53,000 was not driven by the Whitecaps or the stakes of the match. It was driven almost entirely by Lionel Messi, maybe soccer's GOAT. People were there to see Messi, not necessarily the match. They just happened to get treated to a fantastic match from the home team, and so you had your storybook. I think they could certainly do the lower bowl. I can certainly see 30,000 plus, the sorts of playoff crowds we have seen from the Caps in the last 2 years. But Rob, you spend a lot of time looking at attendance and ticket demand and things like that. Where do you think the Caps could get to in terms of this CONCACAF Champions Cup if it happens at BC Place?
Let me first say I'm so excited by the Vancouver Whitecaps right now. It's like this is not just a lucky run through the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Like, they are the best. They are the class of MLS. Like, they've been outstanding. They've been fun to watch. They've ticked every single box, and I hope people come out to support this team. Like, this is just. I was at the Messi match at BC Place. I came home. I was wired. I had trouble getting to sleep. It was such an exciting moment for the franchise. One Soccer finally got my money. I signed up. I watched the match last night. It pained me. I hate signing up for all these other streaming services. My one concern is if you weren't at BC Place for the Messi match, if you didn't sign up for One Soccer, you're hearing about the buzz of the Whitecaps, but you haven't watched it. You're not watching on TV. So I wonder how much that hurts attendance for this match if it is at BC Place. Can they sell it out? I think it's possible. I think they would get a very good crowd. I don't know if they fully sell it out. I think they get over 40,000. Definitely a sellout of the lower bowl. Every Whitecaps fan that's in town is absolutely going to that match. So I don't think you have to worry about season ticket members bucking up. I think they all would. I think it would be tough to sell out BC Place. I hope I'm wrong, but they should sell out BC Place because this is the biggest match in franchise history, certainly since they've entered MLS, and it could be the biggest win in over 40 years.
May I have the floor now?
Some King Solomon wisdom there from Rob. I went 30 plus, you went 50 plus. He took us right down the middle at 40.
May I have the floor now?
Oh, the honorable gentleman from North Vancouver would like
Price
to speak
is right,
here,
coming
Rob.
up.
Not to repeat myself here, but do you remember that Messi came here or was supposed to come here once before? Mm-hmm. And Vancouver Whitecaps and sports fans around the Lower Mainland bought up tickets in a matter of seconds and sold it out. They were scorned. There was a class action lawsuit talked about. They were absolutely enraged. One more chance to face Inter Miami. Burned by the first time, happily buy in, not knowing if he's going to even show up that time. I was on local news outlets talking about it. Do you think he's actually going to play? Mm-hmm. People paid money for maybe the possibility, the chance, perhaps, to see Messi. That's how quickly they were. And they still filled it up. You got way more time to sell it out here. Mm. The last time that a Canadian team was in this Champions Cup final was 2015. The Montreal Impact, a team that won 15 of 34 MLS games that season. A good team, but not the kind of pace that the Whitecaps are on. They put 61,000 people into the Big O at Olympic Stadium. 61.
Who was the opponent?
Club America. Exact same comparison.
The honorable member from North Vancouver now cedes his time, drops his mic. Rob, you're free to do the same. We'll catch up next week, my friend.
Sounds great.
That was
Thanks,
it? It was just a statement, right?
done.
Like you didn't need Rob to respond to anything?
Mic drop.
Rob, thank you for standing by. We pay you good money to listen to Lake Press. Secure some price from the historic Wall Center, and if you have your tickets to the big game, why not make it a full experience, a full week, and a staycation downtown here in Vancouver? Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Secure some price rate. Some blackout date supply based on availability. The Golf Report brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Designed Whistler Golf Club. And Blake, PGA Tour golf was certainly diminished by Liv.
Yeah.
All the big names who left. But through the RBC Heritage, the tournament after the Masters, ratings up 26% this year.
Whoa. Really?
Now, they've had some compelling winners. Rory's won 3 times, including a Masters for the ages, right?
Yeah.
Justin Thomas with a long putt on a playoff hole to win the RBC.
Breaking a long draw for him.
Exactly. Victor Hovland has won a tournament. Ludwig Oberg has won a tournament. Minwoo Lee, who's got a big social media following, has now finally won a tournament. And he brings not only Australians to the party, but Koreans as well. So really name winners, which was not the case last year. Like last year it was Scotty Scheffler, and who the hell are these guys who were winning? But now you get this shallow period on the schedule.
Bit of a soft spot in the skid.
Right? And so, look, the RBC Heritage is a really good tournament. It's an elevated event. It's got a great field. Harbortown is an interesting course with topography in the South Carolina low country that you just don't see a lot at other golf
and
tournaments.
And a tradition is the Postmasters.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is a serviceable dessert for the Masters. But I've always felt this, and especially when I live back east, because the Masters also signals the start of golf season in a large swath of this continent, right?
Yeah.
And then like if the Masters does set the hook with people, especially with new fans, okay, the RBC, but then you're a long wait until your next tournament of consequence, like 5 weeks to the PGA Championship.
The Wells Fargo usually gets a pretty. It's not called the Wells Fargo anymore. It's next week.
This year in particular. So you have the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow, but it hosts the PGA Championship this year. So they've moved that event to the Philadelphia Cricket Club, a different name, sponsor,
the Truist,
corporate, the Truist Conference.
But it's a great course too. It'll be interesting to see how
Quail Hollow is. So is the Philadelphia Cricket Club, but it's not like a commercially known great course.
No, it's a very exclusive course.
Right.
Yeah.
This week, the Byron Nelson, which when Byron Nelson was around and a great grand ambassador of the game, sure.
I'm looking at the field now. There's nobody there.
Well, Taylor Pendrith is a defending champion.
And Hughes is Hughes opened with a 65, so that's good.
And, of course, there's the Zurich in New Orleans, and I don't even want to bring that up because I know how Blake feels about team golf. It was fine. Last year when Rory and Lowry won, the two affable Irishmen, fine. But
I hate that event so much.
Let me ask you this. Beginning of the season, you're at all these iconic courses after you get out of Hawaii, right? Pebble, Torrey Pines, Riviera, TPC Scottsdale. Then you get to Florida, you have Bay Hill and Arnie. The players are going to stay where it is. I realize they like the tidiness of going from Hawaii to California with the Arizona stop and then over to Florida for a bunch of tournaments. Would you be better served putting a little more meat on the bone here between the Masters and the PGA? Take a Pebble, take a Bay Hill, put them, and then you've got like a golf festival for a month to 5 weeks. I realize not every top player would want to play that many weeks consecutively, but those courses and those events would bring people to the yard, both the best players in the world and the audience.
I think you are you're a little bit hamstrung in that you can't have big events every week. Obviously, it's even hard to have it. 4 out of 6 weeks, it's hard to have big events.
Is it 4 out of 6 too hard? Because that's what I'm talking about here. Or
I think it's hard in that matter. Like you're just not going to get that many. Like Scheffler and Spieth are there this week. I should correct myself.
Well, they're Texans.
But you're not going to get buy-in, and you know what? I think unless they start to really clamp down and create the rules that are more strict, that you've got to show up here. Which again,
well, they've tried to, and even that, because the guys now have so much money, they just pay the fine.
Well, that and they don't want the wear and tear too.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's hard. I really do. The season is so long. If you'd shorten the season, if you compress the season a little bit, you might be able to get more buy-in. But then you take an off season. Then
that is the other thing. Scarcity is less more. With the Formula One schedule, as has been talked about, which these days is like 24, 25 events. So basically every second week throughout the year, it's a little more concentrated in Formula One from March to December. Would that be a better model for? I don't know.
But you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Well,
so in theory,
I realize it's easier said than done. You have all these tournaments, and of course they do great charity work in the community.
And they want the money, the sponsorship money.
Yeah,
and all that.
I hear you. But I'm thinking now, since you've mostly won the war with Liv, like, I guess there's a world where the Saudi PIF fund can just say, no, we're in it for the long, long, long game, and we're going to – but, the Liv hasn't moved the needle much. In fact, without Bryson, I'm not sure where Liv would be right now. The players have gotten worse. John Rahm, Cameron Smith, guys who are right at the top of the world, they're just not tournament seasoned anymore.
Yeah.
Koepka even.
Koepka especially, yes.
So, if there's not a world where you can fast-track their return – and get back to the best players under one umbrella, I'm just wondering what else the PGA Tour can do to maybe put a final nail in the Liv coffin.
The only incremental progress they can do is just axing two. Like, axe two tournaments.
Well,
and compress.
Or the other thing, Blake, is do you really need 120-plus starters in every tournament? Like, there's a lot of guys in the field who don't draw flies, right?
They've addressed that a little bit. They've got the reduced
the
field.
elevated events, yeah. Golf Report brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Spring preparations are well underway. They open May 9th, accepting bookings for the entirety of the 2025 season online right now. No need to wait. Get those times locked in, especially if you have a group of 12 or more, because the prime times fill up faster in Whistler the weekends. Get on that right now and tell them about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups, and follow at Whistler Golf on social. Abbotsford Canucks begin round 2 of the Calder Cup playoffs tonight in Coachella. Game 2 is Saturday. Game 3 back here at Abbey Center on Wednesday. And, of course, Manny Malhotra is officially auditioning now for the Vancouver Canucks head coaching vacancy. Blake, you were all set to watch the Abbey Canucks tonight. You went to AHL.com and you discovered...
Got to pay for it, which is pretty astounding.
It's a revenue stream for them.
No, but it's not cheap.
That's the issue.
$40 a month. You can get it cheaper for $17 a month, but then you got to sign up for the entire year.
$40 a month.
$40 a month.
You're like twice as expensive as Netflix.
Yeah.
I shouldn't actually say that because she pays her Netflix. But last time I checked, it was like $20-some bucks. That's a lot of money for
it's
minor league hockey. What are we doing here, AHL?
Yeah.
Make the games accessible or at least make them affordable.
Like, it should be, if you're going to charge me at all, and at the AHL level, I don't know that you should be charging me. For instance, I believe it's free to watch the Dub playoffs. But if you're going to charge me at all, charge me $5.
Yeah.
Then I'll pay.
I was going to say, is less more. Charge less and just see if you can get a larger swath of the hockey fans signed up. If it's a nominal cost. But at $40, like, you have to really invest in an AHL team, or you're like a scout who needs to see all these games remotely. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Dub, Barclay Parnetta out as Vancouver Giants general manager. He spent 7 seasons atop the Giants. I know they had the one big playoff upset a few years ago, but really nothing by way of run that you could equate to the glory days when they were back at the Coliseum with Don Hay on the bench and Milan Lucic and other stars in the lineup. It's too bad. Vancouver Canadians win their 4th straight at the Nat. And star prospect Arjun Nimmala just continues to rake. The 19-year-old shortstop, the Blue Jays' #1 prospect, 3 hits, drives in 2 more last night. Number 16 prospect, Teron Watts-Brown, strikes out 10 over 4 innings. It's funny because Keegan Matheson of MLB.com said the best part for you guys in Vancouver about Namala is you're going to have him all year because he's 19 and a half. He plays the entire baseball year at 19 this year.
Oh boy.
He thought, maybe late in the season, if he's really doing well, they'll promote him to Double-A. You don't see many teenagers in Double-A. Boy, the way Namala is going, get out to the Nat and see him soon.
Yeah, who knows?
Because this could be a prodigy. Like, this could be a kid who's in baseball before he's legal to have a drink in the U.S.
How old were Vladdy and Bichette when they were?
Vladdy was quite young. Bo was reasonably young, too, because Bo was drafted out of high school. But I think Vladdy was 20, but I don't believe Bo was.
I want to say 20 as well.
I believe Bo was 21 or 22. That's my recollection.
20 for Bo. He got 464 at bats at the age of 20.
Oh, wow. Whew.
That's something else.
Yeah. Anyways, mentioned earlier, Stephen Brunsontown, we went to the game, and he's a
21 for Bichette.
Big Blue Jays guy. He talks with Shapiro and Atkins a bunch, and he's like, they are so excited about this Namala kid. And with every right. Our first-round pick, the pedigree's there, the athleticism's there, and it's a heck of a bat. At 19 years old, he's already this year, I've seen him hit a couple of balls at the Nat where I sit there and go, and this is the youngest guy on the field who's making the loudest contact.
And Steve Ewan just wrote about the that number 2 prospect that
Trey Savage?
Yeah,
the pitcher.
He expects to be on the way.
He will be in Vancouver very shortly. He
Yeah.
is dominating Dunedin in that level. By the way, shout out to Hops reliever Eli Saul of Vancouver. We had him on the show last year. He pitched Tuesday in his hometown here for the Hops, and will likely take the mound again here
and he
in this set.
And
he's having an awesome year. I mean, the ERA's under 2.
He pitched to an Albertan catcher too, so there was a Canadian battery.
Fantastic.
There was a Canadian battery in that game
at the Nat on Tuesday. Final night game of the series tonight, and what a night for baseball. Ooh, gorgeous. Followed by tomorrow's nooner. 1 p.m. starts Saturday. Remember, it's the spring, so we start 1 p.m. at the Nat on Saturdays, and Arby's and White Spot Family Fun Sunday, which is also a Star Wars May the 4th theme on Sunday. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232, CanadiansBaseball.com. The Los Angeles Lakers with Luka Doncic and LeBron James are out in 5 games of the first round of the NBA playoffs as the higher seed to the upstart Minnesota Timberwolves. Blake, now the question, who are they going to go get in the offseason, recognizing that LeBron and Luka is not enough? Can they pry Giannis out of Milwaukee? Is it going to have to be a non-superstar but good player like a Miles Turner in Indiana? And, of course, and he didn't want to say anything last night, understandably so, but are we looking at LeBron's farewell tour next year? Bronny's here, right? He's played with the Sun.
I would think. I mean, do you think there's a chance where he does not come back next year?
No, not really. I think he'll play next year, but I do wonder beyond next season. And
I think
to give it a full run with Luka over a full year and probably a third piece, trying to find a third piece. And sticking with basketball, Penticton, British Columbia's Gordie Herbert named the new head coach of the Canadian senior men's team. Gord has extensive experience coaching in Europe. He actually he had coached the Bayern Munich basketball club. It's a club system in European sports. So he's got a long history in European coaching. In fact, he led Germany to the 2023 World Cup title and 4th place at the Paris Olympics. He replaces Jordi Fernandez, who, of course, replaced Nick Nurse. There's been a little instability there. You'd like to think getting a Canadian in there is now going to stabilize the program. He played for Canada at the 84 Summer Games in Los Angeles. He was also an assistant earlier in the century with the program and with the Raptors. And Arash Madani reporting that Dave Smart, the head coach at Pacific University and the legendary coach at Carleton with all those U Sport championships, is going to join the bench. Smart served as an assistant with Leo Routens way back when. Of course, all pointing towards the next Olympic Games, where we sure hope the men do better than the past.
Do you think there's a chance where they bring in a name coach for the Olympics?
No, I think he's contracted to coach through the Olympics.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. But I just wonder if maybe he's the head coach, but do they bring in a pedigreed NBA guy to manage the personalities and stuff?
Here's what I've wondered. I've put this to my friends like Howard Kelsey and others in Canada basketball. Michael Malone is out there.
Yeah, well,
the
that would be the
NBA
obvious.
championship head coach with the Denver Nuggets. You remember the shock firing late in the season, 3 games left. They turfed him. If you don't know, Michael's father, Brendan, was the original head coach of the Toronto Raptors, so he spent some of his childhood or younger years growing up in Canada, and Michael Malone also served on Leo Routen's staff once upon a time.
Well,
he was a young...
And Jamal Murray, too, right? He's got the Murray connection.
So, now I think Malone's going to get an NBA job because he's got a ring and he's a damn good coach. If you're taking an NBA head coaching job, are you going to serve as a Canadian national team assistant?
But
I have trouble with that.
It's a unique
but Michael
situation,
is the sort
right?
of guy, and I know he comes off as very gruff on television, but Michael's a guy who like deeply cares about this country and basketball. Like he spoke volumes to me about it when we spent some time about how much Canada and growing up here and given the opportunity to coach in Canada meant to him. So I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
It's a unique situation, and again, it's hard to have one and have the other as well. Like, if you ask Michael Malone, okay, he gets the job somewhere, Memphis, wherever, but if you asked him still after he gets that NBA job, would you like to coach at the Olympics? He'd probably still say yes, but it's just hard to do both. I know they don't do co-coaches or associate coaches in national teams generally, but maybe there's some wiggle room there. You never know.
Once went out after a bad Canada loss with Leo Routens, Michael Malone, and Dave Smart. And I think this is the difference between the 3 men. Leo had parked the loss. Okay, let's move on. Let's have a nice dinner. Let's have a drink. Malone and Smart were just sitting there still seething. They could not get over it. The intensity on either side of me was palpable. All right. Do you blame Rick Tocchet for leaving the Canucks? Our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question on Wednesday. Yes or no, the people said.
No.
Correct. Percentage?
64.
73. Miguel, it definitely feels hypocritical. He preached hard work and commitment and then quits. David, he only left because the Flyers have already offered him the job. No NHL coach would give up contract with term and really good money unless they already had something in place. Flyers would give it about another week before announcing the new hire. Tocchet's agent did say to Donnie and Dolly, I have not talked to the Flyers. Rick has not talked to the Flyers. There are always intermediaries in these sorts of things. Chris, near the end of the season, he was trying to make a point that everyone should still play hard, saying, I'm no quitter. And then when he had his first chance, he quit on the team. Management and ownership need to own this L, but Tocchet deserves his fair share of blame. Completely get it. And then agent provocateur, I would run as fast and as far as I could after experiencing working with Fredo Aquilini. Errors and omissions, it's Francesco.
Oh, thanks for correcting.
I think it might have been intentional. Errors and omissions, and indeed we have a couple. I said 6 Vancouver Canucks All-Stars last year. If you include Tocchet, it was 7. And I hope none of you were led astray by this, although you didn't miss the big comeback. I said Caps in Miami at 5:30. It was at 5 last night.
Dr. Ramy also weighing in, omission from yesterday. The most famous / infamous use of the term "you people" in hockey history, though, is Don Cherry.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's true. It still was after Pat Quinn, though.
I mean, it got him fired. It was almost his last words on Coach's Corner.
Yes.
There's something about milk and honey in there as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social.
Thanks to you people. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you people are great. Yeah. Love you people. X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live, many of those platforms, noon Pacific time. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors we tell you people about on a daily basis and keep it local.